Welcome back to the East Lake Pet Talk podcast. I'm veterinarian Dr. Karen Fling, and what's new at East Lake and Dallas is that it's cold outside, and the last thing on people's minds right now is thinking about heartworm disease. Yet this week alone, we've diagnosed several positive cases of heartworm disease, and that really makes us sad because this disease is nearly 100% preventable. And these are a couple of the pets that have tested positive this week. We have Duke and Sadie, and I think looking at Duke and Sadie, it brings to mind that heartworm disease does not discriminate. Big dogs, little dogs, cats, and even ferrets are all susceptible to heartworm disease. And all it takes is one mosquito to infect your pet's heart, lungs, and arteries with big spaghetti-like worms. And in one of these cases, the dog was on a generic heartworm preventative medication that may have failed. And in the other case with little Sadie, she was a stray before she was adopted, and her rescue story is really quite amazing. And in Sadie's case, the rescuer, Amy, went to bed with 3 dogs and woke up with 4. She heard a commotion going on about 3:30 in the morning and found that there was an extra dog in her house. And once Amy got this dog brought into the clinic and tested and evaluated, we found that this little dog was heartworm positive, but her rescuer has decided to keep little Sadie and believes that this little dog was heaven sent, even though deep down I think she really believes that someone stuffed this little dog through her doggy door. And while we're talking about amazing rescue stories, there is the story of the snow rescue for Lucky, now at East Lake Pet Orphanage. And Lucky was a little dog half buried in snow, covered in mange, and the story of her rescue is really quite remarkable. Let's take a look.
This is Kenny, and he just picked up this little dog that we've now deemed Lucky, because he's a very lucky boy. So, can you tell me the story behind this kiddo?
Okay, well, normally I would drive home 45 to 20 and take 20 all the way home, but since there's snow on the ground, they've shut down work early today, so I got to leave a little bit early and figured I would take back roads so I didn't get stuck in the hours of traffic. And I was coming up to the bridge on Dowdy Ferry before Highway 20, and I saw this dog just sitting on the side of the road in the snow right before the bridge in a thorn patch. It seemed like he was basically waiting to die. I almost continued driving, and I just said to myself, I can't just leave the dog on the side of the road like that in a situation that's probably going to die. So I figured, worst case scenario, I could take it to a shelter and maybe they can bring him back to health or put it to sleep. Both would be better than sitting on the road freezing to death.
Definitely.
And so I stopped, picked him up, and put him in the car, and before I left, I grabbed a bottle of water thinking I might get thirsty, and it seemed to come in handy when I found this dog, and I feel like maybe that was God's way of, sending me that way, so maybe this dog would have a future life. So here we are now. I brought him to y'all's clinic, and y'all have been more than willing to help, and I feel like it's going to be a good situation for this puppy.
Definitely. And thank you for picking him up.
Well, thank you for y'all's help. Y'all have been very helpful. It's very important to have people like y'all.
Well, thanks. And he is one lucky puppy.
I feel like that, so we will call him Lucky.
Well, after seeing that, Lucky definitely deserves the title of Pet of the Week, and her rescuer is definitely a hero. And the story of Sadie and Lucky bring to mind the fact that microchips provide the most likely way that you will be reunited with your pet in the event that he or she gets lost, which is why I'm so happy to welcome Tom Van Houten of PetLink to tell us more about microchips. We'll be back in a moment with more. Tom, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio to talk about microchips today.
My pleasure. Dr. Fling, thank you for having me.
Yes, well, what have we got here?
That was a nice intro into what we're going to talk about.
We believe passionately about microchipping because we see every week pets that get lost and they don't have identification, and then we're at a loss of how to help them get home.
Sure. And we're seeing annually more than 1 million pets are either lost or stolen.
Wow.
AHA, which you are a member of.
Yes, the American Animal Hospital Association, yes.
They say 1 in 3 pets will be lost in its lifetime.
I've heard that statistic before.
Correct.
And it's so easy to think that it won't happen to you. And I've been one of those statistics. We've talked a lot about our sneaky cat, John,
Sure,
that escapes
sure.
out that front doorway.
Correct,
And
correct.
Believe me, all of my pets are microchipped
Very
now.
good.
So,
Or I have an indoor pet that never goes out.
Right.
But there are the times you're taking the pet for a walk, or the door opens. Maybe your daughter or son opens the door and off
or
goes
you have
the dog.
repair people coming in, and then that
Correct,
opportunity
correct.
is there and they go. So you
So-
just never know when it's going to happen.
Correct. And at PetLink, what we want is to reunify that pet. That's our number one goal, is to get the pet back to that homeowner.
Indeed.
There's been a recent study that was published in the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association. From shelters, they say about 21% of the dogs are reunified. That's those without microchips. And only 1.8% of the cats are actually reunified with that pet owner.
Wow.
Now, if these pets are microchipped, that number goes up drastically. Over 51% of the pets are reunified, and 38% plus of the cats are able to get back to those homeowners. So it's,
Much better
it's
odds.
huge.
Yes, much better odds.
Absolutely. I'm out in the clinics working with veterinarians and working with my distributor partners, and we're trying to change the protocol to scan every pet that comes through the door. One,
Well,
to talk about
I agree with that so much. And in fact, we've actually kind of readjusted our protocol. I think we've originally kind of had that microchipping discussion with puppies and kittens as they're coming into the facility. And of course, all the orphanage pets are always microchipped.
Sure.
But we've changed kind of how we think about microchips. Now it's the global standard for all shelters to scan for microchips
Correct,
and
correct.
look for owners where that originally was not the case. And so we've tried to respond to that by making sure that even with adult pets, that we don't overlook them. So we regard scanning for microchips as important as checking a temperature, pulse, and respiration,
Perfect.
or blood pressure even.
Fantastic.
It's so important to have that dialogue and make sure that pet owners know really how simple it is to do microchipping.
sure.
And it is simple, isn't
It is, absolutely. But to your point about scanning every pet, want to make sure that that chip is still functional if it is a microchip
Good point,
pet.
yes.
And then to open up the opportunity to talk about to your client about the importance of microchipping, as you mentioned there. So AVMA actually has one of their protocols of a successful or a good practice is to scan every pet that comes in. So, I mean, you're doing a great job at your clinic. We're trying to spread the word.
We're
and have
doing
your
our
clinic.
best, and it is something so important to talk about.
Very
it really
good, very
is.
good.
Well, tell people what's involved with doing a microchip, implanting a microchip.
Let's pull one
and
out
I
and
see
show
you've
it to
got
you.
some little syringes here,
I do.
and this is what you were saying is the chip you represent. And look at that little syringe. That's pretty cool. That's a tiny little gadget.
14 gauge needle.
Okay, so
some of our-
not very big at all.
Correct, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our competitive syringes are 12 gauge, so this is less evasive, smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Ergonomic design, and PetLink, we do manufacture everything you see here today. So ergonomically designed, and you'll go in at a 45-degree angle. Okay, you're going to tent
Yeah.
in the back of the neck, 45-degree angle. You hear the click. We have a no return click syringe, so once it's locked in place, you know it's been implanted properly. And I want to show you our chip.
So tiny.
That's ours.
Look at that. Can we zoom in on that, Roderick? Wow, that is a teeny tiny little chip there. And this looks different than what we see with a lot of other chips. Tell me about the chip technology
And I'll
here.
show you. We've introduced this 3 years ago, a polymer chip. So it's the only polymer you'll find on the market. Today, these are commonly what are being manufactured as a glass chip. So
Right.
polymer, no chance of breakage with the polymer chip. There is the opportunity with the glass chip for cracks or for the chip to break, and then you get fluids into the microchip and it's no longer going to read. So we think we have better technology. Again, the ergonomic design syringe in clinic.
And it's just like getting any other injection, basically.
Correct.
Right, well that's great. Well, it's really that simple, and we've been doing microchipping now for a period of years. It's not something that requires anesthesia to do. It's just a routine office visit
Correct.
that a doctor or a nurse can provide for your pet. And tell me about this piece of equipment here.
Absolutely. Chips are implanted. They're good for the life of the pet. And out in the field, animal control, or in the clinic, when your client brings in a lost pet, if they had the collar, great, you know who to contact, right? But 8 out of 10 times that collar's
Right.
displaced. So they're going to use a scanner. Animal control out in the field uses a scanner to actually scan the chip. And from that, it gives you a identification number, the microchip pet
That's
ID
so
number.
simple. So literally, this device waves over the pet. you that quickly can see the one-of-a-kind identification number, and then that number's linked to the family.
Correct. Go to a database, and we'll reference the microchip guide. We'll pull that up. I want to show you this piece. In the field, animal control uses this microchip guide, or they're very, very familiar with. You see these manufacturer codes. So you look at Datamars 981 is our manufacturer code. You're using Home Again's 985. Avid is 977. So from that, they know who to contact to find the database that then is attached to that client or that pet owner to get that pet back to.
That's great. That's great. And even if you move, you just update your information in the database, and it's really that simple.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And that's very, very important to be sure and update that information. We get a lot of calls where maybe they donated the pet or transferred ownership. So we're going through, circling around to try to find.
Right, so it's only as good as the information you keep in the system.
Correct.
So if you do have a pet that's already microchipped and you've moved, make sure you update that information. And if you're not sure how to do that, contact your pet's veterinarian. We're all here to help, and we are just passionate about wanting to protect pets this way and get them back home safely.
Absolutely.
Tom, thank you so much for this helpful information. It's so simple. If your pet's not microchipped, make that call today. Talk to your pet's doctor, schedule that appointment, and it's so much better than having the heartbreak of a loss that way where you never get that pet back home.
Correct.
And again,
Correct.
90% of pets without proper identification don't make it home, so don't be one of those statistics.
That's it. Very good.
Okay, well, and thank you so much
Thank
for joining
you
us.
for spreading the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that, and we're about out of time today, but we're going to come back, as promised, next week and talk more about dental health care for pets. There's no other single medical procedure that we do to care for pets than regular routine dentistry to extend life expectancy and keep pets happy and healthy. So tune in with us, same time, same place next week to learn more about that. Thanks for joining us.